My own mother stood up at Christmas dinner, smiled, and told me to give the man I loved to my younger sister. Amara Whitfield's fork froze halfway to her mouth when her mother stood up at the head of the Christmas table, tapped her wine glass with a spoon, and said the words that would end her family as she knew it. Amara, sweetheart, I need you to let Talia marry Ji-hoon. The room went silent except for the crackle of the fireplace. 12-year-old cousin Mikey stopped mid-chew. Amara's fiancé, Ji-hoon Kang, sat rigid beside her, his hand still resting on hers, his thumb frozen mid-stroke. Amara felt the blood leave her face. "Mom," she said carefully, like she was talking someone down from a ledge, "what did you just say?" Deborah Whitfield didn't sit back down. She gripped the back of her chair, knuckles pale, eyes darting once, just once, toward Talia, who wasn't looking at anyone. Talia was staring at her plate like it held the answer to a question only she understood. "I need you to end the engagement," Deborah said again, quieter this time, like saying it softly might make it hurt less. "Before New Year's. Please, baby. You don't understand what's at stake." Amara stood up so fast her chair scraped against the hardwood floor like a scream. "What's at stake is my wedding, Mom. In 4 months. To the man sitting right here." Nobody moved to stop her when she walked out into the freezing Georgia night, leaving 20 years of family Christmases, and one shattered engagement behind her on the table. Ji-hoon didn't follow right away. He sat there instead, staring at Talia, who still hadn't lifted her eyes. If you're watching this from a cold porch tonight, wrapped in a blanket with a cup of something warm, or if you're driving home from your own family dinner wondering what secrets are sitting quietly at your table, comment below and let us know where you're watching from. And if stories like this one keep you up past midnight, hit subscribe now, because what happened to Amara Whitfield that Christmas was only the beginning. 3 months earlier, nobody would have believed the Whitfield family was capable of a betrayal this cold. Amara was the daughter everyone pointed to as proof that hard work paid off. She'd clawed her way out of a 2-bedroom apartment in Macon into an architecture firm in Atlanta, designing buildings that made grown men in suits nod respectfully when she walked into a room. She didn't inherit ambition. She built it, brick by brick, the same way she built everything else. She'd met Ji-hoon Kang at a gala neither of them wanted to attend. He was the reluctant heir to Kang Holdings, a shipping and logistics empire headquartered in Seoul with tendrils stretching into every major port on the eastern seaboard. He'd flown to Atlanta to close a deal his father didn't trust him to close alone. She'd been there to network for a contract her firm desperately needed. They'd both ended up hiding from the small talk in the same stairwell, and that was where it started. 2 exhausted people laughing at how ridiculous the room full of investors sounded through a closed door. He wasn't what she expected from a billionaire's son. He remembered the name of her childhood dog. He learned to make her grandmother's cornbread recipe badly on purpose just to make her laugh. And when his father, Chairman Kang, made it clear that a relationship with an American architect from Macon, Georgia was not part of any strategic plan, Ji-hoon chose her anyway. That should have been the end of the obstacles. It wasn't even the beginning. Talia had always been the daughter who needed saving. Deborah had spent 2 decades bailing her out, of bad relationships, of jobs she quit on impulse, of a gambling habit she swore, every single time, she'd finally kicked. Amara loved her sister. She also knew, in the quiet part of her chest she never said out loud, that Talia had never once forgiven her for leaving Macon and not looking back. The first sign something was wrong came 2 weeks before Christmas, when Deborah called Amara at 11 at night, her voice thin and strange. Can you come by tomorrow? Just you. Not Ji-hoon. Mom, is everything okay? I just need to talk to my daughter, Deborah said, and hung up before Amara could ask which one she meant. When Amara arrived the next day, she found her mother sitting at the kitchen table with a manila folder in front of her, hands folded on top of it like she was guarding it. Deborah's eyes were red-rimmed, exhausted in a way Amara hadn't seen since her father's funeral 15 years earlier. Your father made a mistake, Deborah said finally. A long time ago. Before you girls were born. What kind of mistake? The kind that doesn't go away just because he did. Deborah wouldn't open the folder. She wouldn't say the words. All she said was that the mistake had a name, and the name was Kang, and that if the truth ever surfaced, it wouldn't just end Amara's engagement, it would end everything. The house. The family's name. Possibly worse. How do you know all this? Amara asked, her stomach turning to ice. Deborah's answer was barely a whisper. Talia found the papers. That single sentence should have been the first alarm bell. Amara didn't hear it as one. Not yet. What she did hear, 3 nights later, was her sister's voice through the thin wall of their childhood bedroom, now converted into a guest room where Amara sometimes stayed when she visited. Talia was on the phone, pacing, her voice pitched low in the particular register people use when they don't want to be overheard. I told you I need more time, Talia was saying. She doesn't know yet. Nobody knows yet, except Mom, and Mom is barely holding it together as it is. Amara froze in the hallway, one hand still on the bathroom door. No, Talia said, sharper now. You don't get to threaten her. If you go to him before I'm ready, I swear to God, I will make sure everyone in Seoul knows exactly how you found those documents in the first place. The call ended. Amara stood in the dark hallway for a long moment, her heart hammering, trying to decide whether to knock on her sister's door and demand answers, or to pretend she'd heard nothing at all. She chose, that night, to pretend. It was a decision she would regret for the rest of the holiday season, because pretending gave the lie 3 more days to grow teeth. For the next 2 weeks, Amara noticed things she couldn't explain. Talia, who hadn't returned a phone call from their mother in months, was suddenly at the house every day. Deborah, who used to call Amara 3 times a week just to talk about nothing, went quiet, distant, flinching every time Amara mentioned the wedding. And once, when Amara arrived early to help decorate for Christmas, she caught Talia and their mother standing too close together in the pantry, voices low, stopping the second the door creaked. We were just talking about stuffing, Talia said, too fast, too bright. Amara wanted to believe her. She'd spent her whole life wanting to believe her sister. 2 days before Christmas, Ji-hoon received a call from Seoul that changed the shape of everything. His father's assistant, calling on the chairman's behalf, informed him that a private investigator representing the Kang family had uncovered financial documents connecting the Whitfield name to an embezzlement case from 22 years earlier, a case that had quietly bankrupted a small shipping subsidiary the Kang family once partnered with. The subsidiary's collapse had cost jobs, pensions, and nearly the reputation of Kang Holdings itself before it was buried and forgotten. The man accused, though never formally charged before his death, was Robert Whitfield, Amara's father. They're saying my father stole from your family, Amara said, gripping the phone so hard her knuckles ached. Ji-hoon, I didn't know any of this. I swear to you, I didn't know. I believe you, he said quietly. And he did. But belief wasn't going to be enough to stop what was coming. That night, Deborah finally opened the folder in front of both her daughters, and the story she told broke something in Amara that would take the rest of the season to put back together, because the woman who confessed to hiding a 22-year-old secret wasn't the only person at that table who already knew the truth. If this story is hitting you right in the chest right now, if you've ever had a family secret rewrite everything you thought you knew, drop a comment and tell me how it's making you feel. And smash that like button if you're desperate to know what Deborah Whitfield had been hiding for over 2 decades, because what she said next changed the entire shape of this Christmas. "Your father didn't steal for himself," Deborah said, voice breaking. "He stole to save this family." Kang Holdings subsidiary was about to blacklist every small logistics contractor in the Southeast, including the company your father worked for. 200 people were about to lose their jobs 3 weeks before Christmas. He found a way to redirect funds, money that was never going to reach those workers anyway, to keep them employed. It wasn't right. But it wasn't the monster the Kangs believe he was, either. Then why hide it? Amara asked. Why not just tell the truth? Because the man who actually orchestrated the fraud, the one who let your father take the fall to protect himself, was Chairman Kang's own brother, Deborah said. And nobody was ever going to believe a dead black man from Macon over a Kang. The silence that followed swallowed the whole kitchen. So what does this have to do with me marrying Talia off to my fiancé? Amara asked, her voice shaking now, more from fury than fear. Deborah's eyes slid, involuntarily, to her younger daughter. And Talia, for the first time all season, finally looked up. Because I told Chairman Kang everything, Talia said. 2 weeks ago. I told him I could make it disappear. I told him it would disappear if his son married the right sister. The words landed like a slap. Amara actually took a step back, as if the distance could soften the blow. You went behind my back. You went to his father. About our father. I went to protect us, Talia shot back, standing now, her chair scraping just like Amara's had at the dinner table. You think a scandal like this only hurts Dad's memory. It hurts Mom. It hurts the house. It hurts me, Amara, because unlike you, I don't have an architecture firm and a rich fiancé to fall back on when everything collapses. So your solution was to sell yourself to my fiancé. My solution, Talia said, voice cracking, was to fix what you were too busy being happy to notice was falling apart. Deborah tried to step between them, hands raised, but Amara held up a hand of her own, not at her sister, but at her mother. Did you know she went to Chairman Kang? Before tonight, did you know? Deborah's silence was its own confession. You knew, Amara whispered. You knew, and you let me sit at that table for 3 weeks talking about seating charts and cake flavors while my own mother and sister were negotiating my engagement behind my back like I was a shipping contract. She didn't wait for an answer. She grabbed her coat and walked back out into the cold, and this time nobody called after her at all. Ji-hoon found her 40 minutes later, sitting on the hood of her car 3 blocks from her mother's house, her breath fogging in the December air. He didn't say anything at first. He just took off his coat, draped it over her shoulders, and sat down beside her. My father called again, he said finally. He wants to meet with your sister. Formally. Next week. Amara let out a bitter laugh that had no humor in it at all. Of course he does. I told him no, Ji-hoon said. I told him if he pursues this, I walk away from Kang Holdings entirely. Every share. Every title. I'll start over with nothing before I let him turn my marriage into a payoff for a scandal that isn't even mine to forgive. Amara turned to look at him, searching his face for hesitation and finding none. He's not going to just let this go, Ji-hoon. Not when he has actual proof. Then we find out what really happened 22 years ago, Ji-hoon said, before his brother's lie gets to finish what it started. It took 4 days, 3 lawyers, and 1 very reluctant retired accountant living outside of Savannah to unravel what Robert Whitfield had actually done. The elderly man, a former bookkeeper for the subsidiary in question, still had records he'd kept hidden for over 2 decades, insurance, he called it, in case anyone ever came asking. What those records revealed wasn't just Robert Whitfield's innocence. It revealed that Chairman Kang's brother hadn't acted alone, and hadn't stopped after burying the fraud on a dead man's reputation. He had been quietly siphoning funds from Kang Holdings subsidiaries for years, long after Robert Whitfield died, and could no longer be blamed for anything new. The final piece arrived on the morning of New Year's Eve, delivered not by lawyers but by Talia herself, standing on Amara's doorstep with red-rimmed eyes, and the same manila folder their mother had once guarded like a wound. "I need to tell you something," Talia said, "and I need you to actually let me finish before you slam the door." Amara didn't slam the door. She stood there, arms crossed, and let her sister talk. "I didn't go to Chairman Kang to steal your fiancé," Talia said. "I went because 6 months ago, a man showed up at my apartment asking questions about Dad. Private investigator. He as good as told me that if the truth came out the way the Kangs wanted it to come out, it wouldn't just be Dad's name they dragged through the mud. It would be Mom's. Because Mom signed some of those transfer documents too, Amara. She didn't know what she was signing. But her signature is on paper that could put an 80-year-old woman in serious legal trouble if the Kangs decided to make an example out of this family." Amara felt the ground shift under her for the second time in a week. "You should have told me. You were so happy," Talia said, and for the first time, her voice wasn't angry, just exhausted. "For once in your life, everything was finally going right for you. And I couldn't figure out how to hand you this without destroying it. So I panicked. I made it about me marrying him, because at least then it would look like a business decision and not a scandal. I was trying to protect Mom the only way I knew how. It was a stupid plan. I know that now. If you're still with us, if you've made it this far into the story, and you feel your chest tightening the way Amara's was in that doorway, hit subscribe right now, because the truth was about to leave the Whitfield family for good, and it was heading straight for Chairman Kang's front door. The meeting took place 3 days later, in a glass conference room 40 floors above Seoul, with Ji-hoon on one side of the table, his father on the other, and a stack of 22-year-old ledgers between them that told a story Chairman Kang had spent 2 decades refusing to hear. Amara wasn't in the room. She watched it happen over a video call from her mother's kitchen table, holding Deborah's hands so tightly neither of them noticed until it was over. Chairman Kang read every page in silence, his expression unreadable in the way only a man who had spent 40 years running boardrooms could manage. Twice he stopped on a page, removed his glasses, and pressed his fingers to the bridge of his nose before continuing. Ji-hoon said nothing. He had learned long ago that his father's silences carried more weight than most men's shouting, and he wasn't about to fill this one. When Chairman Kang finally looked up, his voice was quieter than Ji-hoon had ever heard it. "My brother let an innocent man die with this on his name," he said. "And I let him." "You didn't know," Ji-hoon said. "I didn't ask," Chairman Kang corrected him. There's a difference, and I have spent 22 years pretending there isn't. I built half of what this company is on the story that a dishonest American cost us a subsidiary. I told that story at dinners. I told it to you, when you were young enough to believe every word your father said. I have been telling a dead man's lie for so long, I nearly let it cost me my own son's happiness to keep it standing. He closed the folder slowly, both hands flat on top of it, and for a moment he looked less like the chairman of a shipping empire, and more like an old man confronting the one debt he could never quietly write off. Tell me what you need from me, he said. Not what is easiest. What is right? The apology that followed wasn't loud, and it wasn't easy, but it was real. Chairman Kang issued a private statement clearing Robert Whitfield's name through the same legal channels that had once buried it, quietly enough to spare the family further exposure, thoroughly enough that no investigator would ever knock on Talia's door again. His brother, facing evidence of fraud that had continued long past Robert Whitfield's death, was quietly and permanently removed from the company he had spent years exploiting. Amara flew to Seoul 2 weeks later, not for a wedding, but for a conversation she needed to have in person. She found Chairman Kang alone in his office, staring out over a skyline that had built and buried her father's reputation without ever knowing his name. I'm not here for an apology, she said. I'm here because I want to know the man my future father-in-law actually is, before I marry his son. Chairman Kang studied her for a long moment, the way a man studies someone he underestimated. Your father saved 200 jobs and lost his good name doing it, he said finally. I think, Miss Whitfield, that I owe your family considerably more than an apology. I intend to spend the rest of my life paying that debt, starting with never doubting my son's judgment again. The wedding happened in the spring instead of winter, smaller than originally planned, warmer in every way that mattered. Deborah walked her daughter down the aisle with the manila folder finally, truly, closed for good. Talia stood beside Amara as her maid of honor, and when she gave her toast, she didn't talk about billionaires or scandals or the family's near collapse. She talked about a sister who had never once, in an entire lifetime, needed saving, and a mother who had spent so many years trying to protect her daughters from the past that she'd almost cost them both their futures. Before we get to the ending, if this story taught you anything about the secrets families carry to protect the people they love, even when it hurts the people they're protecting, comment below, and tell us the biggest lesson you're taking from Amara's story tonight. And if you want more stories like this one, make sure you're subscribed, because the Whitfield family's story doesn't end at the altar. Amara learned something that Christmas that took her the better part of a year to fully understand, that love doesn't collapse under the weight of a family's secrets, it's what survives them. Her mother hadn't asked her to give up Ji-hoon out of favoritism or malice. She'd asked out of fear, the particular kind of fear that convinces good people to make terrible decisions in the name of protecting the ones they love. Her sister hadn't betrayed her out of jealousy. She'd made a desperate, misguided choice to carry a burden alone rather than watch it fall on the sister she'd spent a lifetime resenting and loving in equal measure. Some families are torn apart by the secrets they keep. The Whitfield women learned, the hard way, that the ones who survive are the families brave enough to finally set them down.